Hi, and welcome back to Creative Cooking. I'm Dr. Helen. Thank you so much for stopping by. I'm so excited. It's like you're coming in and having dinner with me. Well, let's have dinner tonight, and we're going to have this one as pasta night. And everybody loves pasta, right? From the little ones all the way to the older ones, everybody loves pasta. And this time, we're going to make 3 incredible pastas for you. All of them are diabetic friendly, but just between me and you, nobody else has to know it. So we're going to start with our first pasta of the 3. We're going to make pasta arrabbiata. We're going to make spicy Tuscan pasta. And then we're going to make probably my favorite, pesto pasta. So let's get started with pasta arrabbiata. I hope that pronounces very nicely, but here we go. We're going to use our favorite gluten-free pasta, and then we're going to have 6 garlic cloves, 1/4 of a cube of our not chicken bouillon cubes, and we're going to add about 1/4 cup of water with that. We're going to also use 5 large organic tomatoes. It's important to use organic tomatoes because they're sprayed extremely heavily with pesticides, and pesticides don't add any extra flavor. We're going to have about a teaspoon of smoked paprika, 1/4 teaspoon of dried basil, a teaspoon of red pepper flakes. We're going to also just add a few basil leaves, which is really not traditional, but you know, pasta without basil, I don't know, we got to do it. And then we're going to have some salt to taste, and then a handful of parsley, and we're going to chop that really finely. All right, let's get started. So first, we're going to turn our heat on. I like to turn it over onto a medium-high heat. And then we're going to put in a little bit of water. I put about 1/4 cup of water in there. And then we're going to start with our bouillon cube. I'm going to just pop that into the pan, and you kind of smash it up a little bit because it's a little firm, and we just kind of smash it up so that it can mix well with the water. And then we're going to add to that our fresh garlic. And you know, fresh garlic is so good for you. It's full of antioxidants, lowering your blood pressure. It's really, really an incredible, tasty way to stay healthy. So I'll use that garlic. You know, I might, even add a little bit more garlic in it because I just love the flavor of garlic. And we're going to just saute that in over the fire. Get that all in there and let it flavor the water of with the garlic and with the not chicken bouillon cubes. So we're just going to let that go until it's fragrant, maybe 1 or 2 minutes. Doesn't require a lot. And then once we do that, we're going to add in our tomatoes. And these are nicely chopped tomatoes, and we're going to cook those in there. And I like to kind of turn the flame up just a bit because I want this to kind of boil for a little bit, and then we'll start turning down the fire to allow it to simmer together and to get all of those flavors to meld together. I'm going to add to that red pepper flakes. Now this is what makes it spicy. Arrabbiata actually means angry, and it really means angry with like fire. And so I like spicy, and so I kind of like it a little spicier than what is in your instructions. But if you would like to, you can add a little bit more spice to it. So I'm going to pop that in. And then I have here smoked paprika. Smoked paprika is like so delicious. It adds kind of I don't know, maybe it just kind of deepens the flavor of the food, and it makes it so incredibly tasty that I use it in pretty much a lot of things. I don't put it in cakes though, so don't put it in any cakes, but you can put it in savory things, okay? So we put that in there, and it also adds a nice redness to it. It deepens the color of the tomatoes, which is really pretty fabulous. And then I'm going to put dried basil. Now, I put dried basil in here because the recipe, the traditional way of making it, calls for black pepper. And so instead of using black pepper, I use dried basil because it has a sort of a peppery flavor to it. And so I'll use dried basil, and I'll just use a bit, about maybe 1/4 of a teaspoon of it, and I'll put that in there. I'm going to also add in here some salt to taste. I'm going to put a little bit in here, and if I need to, at the with the finished product, we'll just put a little bit more salt in there to taste. I put that little bouillon cube in there, so that has a little bit of sodium in it, and I don't want it to be over salted, but I do want it to be flavorful. The salt that I use is typically Himalayan pink salt. I like Himalayan pink salt, or I'll like maybe Celtic sea salt or Redmond sea salt. And all of those salts are salts that are full of minerals. The Morton sea salt that you get over the counter or at the grocery store typically just has sodium and chloride in it, and that will actually make your blood pressure go up a little bit more, whereas the other salts tend to have less sodium than the regular sodium chloride, and it has over 80 minerals in it, so that it'll help to keep all of those things intact, all of your blood pressure parameters intact. So that's why I use Himalayan salt. And they put actually bleach in the table salt. So I don't use regular table salt. I will typically use the ones that I said and then never ever think about using that regular table salt. And if you have it in your cabinets, I would just chuck it, or you can use it for body scrubs or anything like that, when you mix it with some shea butter and all that kind of thing, so you don't have to throw it away. But I certainly wouldn't eat it. Now, this has cooked down really nicely. It's really got all the flavors all in it. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this over to the Vitamix, and I'm going to pop it in here. Look at that nice red color. I'm going to pour it over here. Maybe I'll take it with a spatula. Then that way it won't splatter everywhere. Okay. Okay. So once I put that in there, then I'm going to put my top on it, and I'm really just going to pulse it. Perfect. Ah, yes. So we're going to come back over and we're going to put it back into our pot. So it's actually just a little chunky. I don't want it to be smooth. I just want to have a little bit of chunk in there. Put it back into the pot, and then I'm going to put in my fresh parsley. And I'm going to put in a little bit of basil, put it back over the flame, and just make sure it's heated through. And while that is just heating through for just maybe a minute, I'm going to get these things out of the way. And then we're going to put it in our bowl. We're going to get ready to plate it in our bowl. So I'm going to take, this is gluten-free linguine. So I'm going to take this linguine and I'm going to pop it in here and just toss it through, so that all of those noodles are nicely coated with our delicious and spicy pasta arrabbiata sauce, this angry sauce that we talk about. Alrighty, now once that's in there, I usually make my pasta sauce, I usually make my pasta al dente, because you're gonna kind of heat it up in here a little bit longer, and if it's overcooked, it's gonna really start to turn mushy, and I don't like mushy pasta, so I will just make it al dente. So if it says to cook the pasta 7 to 9 minutes, I'm going to cook it 7 minutes and then put it in here. And then we'll continue just a little bit of a heat through this way. Now we're going to take it and we're going to plate it here in our bowl. This is our serving bowl, because you know that presentation is just everything. And we are wanting to be healthy. You know, we're trying to use our new currency. Remember, health. We're going to use our new currency for health. And then we're just going to put just a little bit of fresh basil on top. Yes, look at that. Isn't that nice? Now, our next pasta is going to be spicy Tuscan pasta. So excited about this one. And the ingredients for this delicious spicy Tuscan pasta is 1 pound of your favorite gluten-free pasta. We're going to use 3 cloves of minced garlic, a 1/4 cup of water, sun-dried tomatoes. I call it a package, but you might find it as in a jar, or you might find it in some other form. We're going to use about half of a cup of it. I will soak it because sometimes it's in salt or maybe in oil. So I'll put the hot water on there, and it will not only soften them, but it'll also remove some excess salt and some excess oil. So I'll soak that for a few minutes and then take it out, and we're ready to go. We're going to also use organic spinach. Now, spinach comes in a large clamshell. That plastic container that it comes in is a clamshell, and sometimes it comes in a large clamshell, and sometimes it comes in a smaller clamshell. For this particular recipe, we're going to use half of that shell. Then we're going to use 3 cups of cashew cream, because this is going to be the creamy sauce that we're going to be using. And then we're going to add half a teaspoon of salt, a 1/4 teaspoon of dried basil, 1 teaspoon of Italian seasoning, a 1/4 cup of nutritional yeast flakes, and we're going to garnish it with fresh basil. And the cashew cream is going to be 1.5 cups of soaked cashews. We're going to use 3 cups of water, 2 garlic cloves, a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, a teaspoon of crushed red pepper, and I said it's optional, but it wouldn't be spicy Tuscan pasta if we didn't use it. And let's get started with that cream sauce first. This is delicious. We're going to start with our cashews. We're going to pop in our 2 large cloves of garlic. I love garlic, so the larger the better for me. I have my nice red pepper flakes. I'm going to toss in a little bit of salt, more if we need to, but I don't like to start with too much salt because we want to keep it just at a nice minimum. And then I'm going to put in my 3 cups of water. Here we go. 3 cups. Perfecto. Now I'm going to put my top on securely, and then I'm going to flip it on, and I'm going to make this into a creamy sauce. It actually will be a little thinner than you think, but as we cook it, it's going to get a little thicker. Let's take a look at that. Yes, that looks good. So we're going to put that aside here. And then we're going to start with our sauteing. Now, as you know, I like to start sauteing with my water, and I'll put in over medium heat a little bit of water in the pan. Okay? And then I'm going to start with my fresh garlic, which is just so good. This is kind of where the base of the flavor is coming from, right there with that delicious garlic. And then I'm going to put in my tomatoes. These are my sun-dried tomatoes, and the 2 of those I'm going to just saute together so that we get some flavor in there. You know, I like for the flavor to infuse in all of the food, because that's what makes it so delicious, when the flavors are felt together and tasted together in the pot. So we're going to put that in there. And I make sure that heat is good. This one's high. I'm going to turn it down a little bit. Perfect. Now that looks good. You can actually smell the garlic and the tomatoes. They actually smell really, really nicely. And then I'm going to put in my cream. And again, you're going to see how thin the sauce goes in, but how it thickens as we continue to cook it. All righty. So we're going to pour in our cream. Look at that. And just stir it around. Stir that sauce around. We're going to put in our nutritional yeast flakes. It's interesting, this new nutritional yeast flakes has lots of B vitamins in it. It gives it a nice cheesy flavor, and it helps to thicken the sauce as well. So you can see how that works. And you can already see, I can feel a little bit more resistance as I'm cooking through and stirring the pot. I'm going to also put in my Italian seasoning. I'm going to put in my dried basil just to give it a little bit of a peppery flavor. Continue to stir that really well. Now, as that cooks, I'm going to just mix it in, and then I'm going to start adding my spinach. Perfect. So the spinach goes in next, and the spinach is just going to be wilted. You see how I like to put in lots of vegetables inside of these dishes because that maximizes the nutrition. You want to have the vegetables each day, you want to have the fruits each day. So when we add them to some of our meals, we'll start to get those requirements, the things that make us nice and healthy, because remember, health is the new currency, right? And we should make it the new normal, right? If we make health the new normal instead of being diabetic, or instead of having high blood pressure, or instead of having high cholesterol, let's make our health the new normal. Doesn't that make sense? Alrighty, so you see how we're going to just continue to cook that, and this is going to just wilt the spinach in. And so as we get that wilted, as it heats up, I'm going to add in a little bit of this fresh parsley in here, and the parsley just kind of wakens the flavor up pretty nicely. So that's good. And I'll turn the heat up a little bit. Yes, there we go. And it's nice. It's thickening up really nicely. Oh, I love the way this smells. If you could smell this in here with me, you would be as excited as I am. Now, to this pasta, while this is kind of wilting in there, while it's heating up, we are going to get our dish together so that we can plate this, because it's going to be ready in just a few minutes. Again, I have my favorite gluten-free pasta over here. And the reason that I use gluten-free pasta is because gluten-free pasta does not damage the beta cells. The gluten in the pasta damages the beta cells, and that's where we want the pancreas to recover. The beta cells are what's important for secreting insulin. And if they're not working well, then you're not going to have a good time with your type 2 diabetes. And our goal is to reverse it. So we're gonna just take this pasta and we're gonna just mix it in nicely with our sauce. And I'm glad I have a really large pan over here, because we need to be able to stir this sauce around in here. But look at that beauty, all right? Now, I always think that it's important to make sure it looks good. So a few more leaves of parsley in there, and then we'll top it with some parsley. And then when we plate this, you'll see how delectable this pasta is. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? Now, who wouldn't want to have this even as your guest? It looks like spices are just all over this. Nice. And once that pasta is done and you're ready to eat, you can serve this with a nice salad. Serve it with a nice, I also add other green vegetables. So I might do broccolini or even some kale, because I just like to get as many greens as possible. But it makes a delicious pasta. Our next dish is going to be pesto pasta. Let's get started on that one. We're going to use our favorite gluten-free pasta. We're going to do spinach pesto, 2 cups of fresh basil, 1 cup of fresh organic spinach, half of a small avocado, 2 cloves of garlic, a 1/4 cup of nutritional yeast flakes, 2 teaspoons of lemon juice, a 1/4 teaspoon of salt or salt to taste, and a 1/4 cup of pine nuts or cashews. And our last amazing pesto pasta, here it is. I told you that pesto is probably my favorite. Today we're going to make our pesto sauce, and then we're going to use our favorite pasta and just dredge it all over that pasta to give all that really delicious flavor. So we're going to start with putting in our spinach. And then we're going to put in our basil. This is the star of the show here, the basil. Put a little bit more in there just because it's so fabulous. Okay. And then we're going to put in our pine nuts. Oh, there you go. Some lost pine nuts. We'll have to find them later in life. Then there's some garlic cloves we're going to place in there. We're going to put in a little bit of salt. And then nutritional yeast flakes. We'll start with just a little bit at first, and then we'll put in some more. We're going to add some of our water. I'm using a little bit of the pasta water just to get it moving along in there. And then we're going to put on our, and here we go. We're going to just make sure we kind of get all of these ingredients to meld together and mixed up very nicely. And then we're going to put in a little bit more of our nutritional yeast flakes. We may need to put a little bit more water in here, but we're going to let it tell us what we need to do. Here we go. Now let's take a look at it, and we're going to just stir it a little bit in there. Oh yes, yes indeed. Just a little bit longer after we put in our nutritional yeast flakes. This is again what's going to give it some cheesiness. Okay, now this smells absolutely amazing, and it looks amazing. Gonna take that out, put it over here in the bowl, and then we're gonna take our pasta, and we've already heated our pan so that we can make sure that we have a nice hot pan when we put our pasta in here. I put a little bit of liquid in here that's, again, just kind of serving as our oil. Put that in there with all of the pasta, and then we're going to just toss in all of this yummy basil pesto in here. And I don't like to waste anything. You know, coming from a family of 8 children, and a mom and dad. We didn't waste much when we were growing up. So I try to get every nice little bit of that flavor and then kind of toss it around in. Sometimes I just want it to be beautiful and I'll just put it in just on top and then just stir it around in there. But this is for the most part how we're going to do it. Basil is so amazing at controlling blood sugar levels. And so I really love using basil for all of my clients with type 2 diabetes because it helps to just control it, not to mention all of the wonderful antioxidants that are in there that you lose when you dry the basil. And the flavor of dried basil is totally different from the flavor of this one. And because we want to make health our new norm, we're going to do it this way with fresh basil. Now, all of these recipes will be found in my new book called The Genesis Plan. So I hope you can get the smell, and that just looking at it makes you feel like, oh, that looks so delicious. I can't wait to try that. So you can pick up that book. We're actually accepting pre-orders for. So this is going to be delicious for you. You're going to love it, and I can't wait for you to try it because health is important. Health is like a commodity. Health is what you want to have for a healthy and more vibrant life. So as long as you are doing the right things, putting the right things in your body, you're more likely to have a more healthful experience in life. In our program, Reverse It, we have tons of recipes that allow you to reverse type 2 diabetes, to prevent those things like high blood pressure, high cholesterol, to prevent all of the untoward complications of type 2 diabetes, including kidney failure or even a loss of vision. So how about making your health the best commodity? How about making health the new norm, using health as your new currency and making it a healthy day? Always, always use fresh, always use delicious, and always make the choice for health. Now, if you want to, you can also use cashews in this. I use pine nuts, but we can use cashews as another nut. That's another option if you had difficulty finding pine nuts. But either way, they both make a delicious sauce. So today we've made 3 delicious pastas. We've made our spicy Tuscan pasta, we've made our pasta arrabbiata, and now our delicious pesto pasta. Make your dinner complete with these delicious recipes. Enjoy them.